$300,000. Frank Sinatra spent this money on just one man. He built a private helicopter pad for the President of America. But then that phone call came. "The President's plans have changed, Mr. Sinatra." That day, Frank Sinatra had every inch of that $300,000 pad destroyed because his closest friend had abandoned him for Bing Crosby. This wasn't just a cancelled visit. This was the biggest friendship betrayal in American history. And Frank's revenge, oh, Frank's revenge became legendary. Hey everyone, today I'm going to tell you a true story. The tragic end of the friendship between Frank Sinatra and John F. Kennedy. After listening to this story, you'll think a lot about what friendship really means. In 1960, Frank Sinatra and John F. Kennedy were America's most powerful duo. Frank wasn't just a singer, he was the secret weapon of Kennedy's presidential campaign. It all started with that famous High Hopes song. Frank changed the lyrics for Kennedy, singing "Jack's the one who has the know-how." When this song played at campaign rallies, the crowds went absolutely wild. But Frank's contribution to Kennedy wasn't limited to music. He was also opening Hollywood's doors to Kennedy.
Hey!
It was Frank who introduced him to Marilyn Monroe.
It was Frank who organized those secret meetings in Los Angeles.
For Frank, Kennedy wasn't just a president. He was also the big brother he never had. Both came from Irish-Italian mixed families. Both were charming, both loved strong women. Kennedy, on the other hand, was fascinated by Frank's world. The Rat Pack parties, Vegas nights, Hollywood glamour. When he was with Frank, he felt like a rock star, not just an ordinary politician. In early 1962, JFK gave Frank the good news. "I'm coming to Palm Springs at the end of March. Frankie, we'll relax for a few days, talk about old times." Hearing this news was like getting the world for Frank. This wasn't just a visit, mate. It was the peak of their friendship. Being the personal guest of the President of America, he immediately sprang into action.
Hey.
He decided to completely renovate his house called Twin Palms in Palm Springs. He decided to spend $300,000, about $3 million in today's money. First job, security. Tight meetings were held with the Secret Service. Every corner, every room of the house was reviewed. New security systems were installed. Bulletproof glass was fitted. Then comfort. Frank researched Kennedy's favorite foods: New England clam chowder, lobster salad, Irish coffee, haas. They hired a special chef, planned the menu. But Frank's biggest project was the helicopter pad. He had a special helicopter pad built in his house's garden, next to the pool, because Kennedy was planned to arrive and leave by helicopter. Every night Frank would walk around the house, checking the details. "It has to be perfect," he would say. "When Jack comes, everything must be flawless." In mid-March 1962, Frank started hearing strange things. He noticed that people around Kennedy were starting to act distant toward Frank. The problem was Frank's suspicious connections from his past. The FBI and Department of Justice were warning Kennedy about Frank's mafia connections. Especially his friendship with Sam Ganta was creating big problems. Sort of TNT. Sam Giancana was Chicago's most powerful mafia leader and Frank's old friend. They had met in the 1950s and spent time together at Chicago clubs. For Frank, Sam was just a friend. But for the FBI, Sam was a dangerous criminal. Robert Kennedy, JFK's brother and Attorney General, was especially against Frank. "Jack, this guy is dangerous," he would say. "Being seen with him will hurt our campaign." But JFK didn't want to listen to these warnings. Frank was a loyal friend who had played a huge role in his campaign. "Bobby's exaggerating," he would say. "Frank is just a harmless singer." Frank could feel this tension. The way people around Kennedy looked at him had changed. But he comforted himself. Jack is my friend. He would never abandon me. March 25th, 1962, Sunday morning. Frank Sinatra was making final preparations at his Palm Springs house. Kennedy was coming the next day. Everything was perfect. At 10:30 a.m., the phone rang. Frank answered excitedly. Maybe Kennedy was calling with last-minute details. Mr. Sinatra? A cold, official woman's voice. Yes, this is Frank Sinatra. This is Kennedy's secretary. The president's plans have changed. The Palm Springs visit has been cancelled. Frank couldn't believe what he was hearing. How cancelled? What do you mean cancelled? Where's Jack? The president is currently in a meeting. He sends his thanks. His thanks? Frank's voice started to rise. I want to talk to Jack. I'm sorry, Mr. Sinatra. The president is not available. Good day. The line went dead. Frank stared at the receiver. This couldn't be real, but then he learned the truth. Kennedy was coming to Los Angeles, but he would stay at Bing Crosby's house, not Frank's. Bing Crosby, Frank's old rival, the Republican singer. This detail made the betrayal twice as painful for Frank. After Frank hung up the phone, a hurricane broke out in the house. First silence. He stood motionless for a full minute. Then the explosion of rage. Damn it, he yelled. He threw the crystal glass in his hand at the wall, pieces scattered everywhere. The servants watched in fear. They had never seen Frank this angry. He started walking around the house, breaking and smashing everything in his hands. $300,000, he was yelling. $300,000 I spent on this guy. $300,000 I spent on this guy. $300,000 I spent on this guy. But his real target was the helicopter pad. He went out to the garden, and when he saw the pad, his anger multiplied. Every square inch of this pad had been built for Kennedy. George, he yelled to his gardener, get concrete breakers for this pad. Right now. George looked confused. So these pads were very expensive. I don't care. There was such rage in Frank's voice that George didn't argue at all. That day, Frank had the helicopter pad completely destroyed. He had the concrete broken, the grass torn up. No trace of Kennedy should remain in the house. The most painful detail Frank learned was that Kennedy was going to Bing Crosby's house. This wasn't just a cancellation, it was an insult. Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra had been rivals for years. In the 1940s, both were the most popular singers. Bing was more traditional, Frank more modern. Bing was Republican, Frank was Democrat. Kennedy's preference for Bing's house meant a personal attack for Frank. It was like saying, "You're not good enough for me." That evening, Frank called his friends Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. There was such pain in his voice that both immediately came to Palm Springs. You know, Dean, Frank said, I fought for this guy. I was part of his campaign. I raised millions of dollars. And now, what happened to that helicopter pad, Frankie? Asked Sammy. I had it destroyed, Frank said in a cold voice. No helicopter will ever land there again. Never. Never. November 22nd, 1963. John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. The news reached Frank during a show in Vegas. Frank was on stage at that moment. He was singing "Fly Me to the Moon." His assistant signaled from the side of the stage. Frank stopped the song midway. Ladies and gentlemen, I've received sad news. President Kennedy has been assassinated. Complete silence fell over the hall. Frank put down his microphone and left the stage. In the dressing room, he cried alone. Because their last conversations had been filled with anger, now he could never apologize, never make peace. That night, Frank didn't drink. He just sat and thought. The good memories with Kennedy came to his mind. Campaign days, nights they laughed and had fun together. Campaign days, nights they laughed and had fun together. I wish our last conversation had been different, he thought. This is the tragic end of the friendship between Frank Sinatra and JFK. One phone conversation changed the lives of two men forever. Maybe Kennedy was right. Sacrifices had to be made for a political career. But Frank was also right. Friendship should be more important than politics. The destruction of that helicopter pad wasn't just breaking concrete. It was also breaking the trust between two friends. And that trust could never be repaired again. When Frank died in 1998, he was buried at his Palm Springs house, close to where the helicopter pad used to be. This story shows us that power and politics can sometimes end even the strongest friendships. What do you think?
Share your thoughts in the comments.
If you liked this story, don't forget to hit the like button and click the subscribe button to become a channel subscriber. See you in the next video.